Welcome to our channel. Today, Rafael Mendez shares his incredible near-death experience that completely transformed his life. It's a story of courage, faith, and purpose you won't want to miss. Before we begin, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss these life-changing stories. Now, let's hear Rafael's powerful testimony. My name is Rafael Mendez, and I'm 47 years old. I've spent most of my life in a small, picturesque town nestled in the green mountains of Vermont. The mornings here are serene, with golden rays of sunlight painting the landscape and the smell of fresh pine lingering in the air. I live in a modest but cozy two-story house with an inviting front porch, the kind of place that's perfect for sipping coffee on cool fall mornings. I work as a graphic designer for a local advertising agency. My life, at least on the surface, seemed complete. I was in a committed relationship with Gabriel for 3 years, a man whose wit and charm brightened my days. We spent our weekends exploring the local trails, sharing quiet dinners, and dreaming of trips we'd someday take. Our bond felt like the center of my universe, a safe, warm haven in a world that often felt uncertain. But beneath the surface of this idyllic existence, I carried questions I didn't dare voice, doubts I couldn't fully name. Raised Catholic, I drifted away from religion in my teens. My faith, once a cornerstone, became a memory, overshadowed by life's complexities and my search for personal identity. Gabriel and I would occasionally discuss spirituality, often with lighthearted jokes about the universe's mysteries, but nothing too serious. Looking back now, I see that I was searching for something, a sense of purpose, a deeper truth. I just didn't know it yet. My life was about to take a dramatic turn, one I could never have foreseen, and it began on what seemed like just another ordinary morning. It was a crisp October morning, the kind that makes you appreciate the beauty of Vermont. The golden hues of autumn leaves sparkled under the early sunlight, and the air carried the faint smell of wood smoke from distant chimneys. I climbed into my old Subaru Outback, clutching a steaming caramel macchiato, my usual morning ritual. Gabriel and I had just finished a cheerful phone call discussing our weekend plans, a casual hike followed by a cozy dinner at our favorite Italian restaurant. Everything felt routine, peaceful. As I drove along Route 7, the winding roads offered stunning views of the countryside. I was lost in thought, reflecting on life's little joys, when out of nowhere, a massive moose appeared on the road ahead. Its sheer size was overwhelming, a towering, dark silhouette against the bright morning light. Time seemed to freeze as adrenaline surged through my veins. Instinct took over. I yanked the steering wheel hard to the right, desperately trying to avoid the animal. But at 65 miles per hour, the car lost control. My heart pounded in my chest as the Subaru skidded, spun, and then careened off the road. I barely registered the sound of my coffee cup smashing against the dashboard or the grinding screech of tires on asphalt. The next moments were a blur of chaos and terror. The car rolled down a steep embankment, smashing into trees along the way. Each impact sent shockwaves through my body until the vehicle came to a jarring halt at the bottom of the ravine. I was pinned between the steering wheel and the seat, my chest heaving with the effort to breathe. Pain radiated through me, sharp, unrelenting, and all-encompassing. Through the haze of agony, I heard faint voices above. A truck driver had seen my car's tail lights through the trees and called for help. Even as consciousness slipped away, I could hear my own frantic thoughts. Is this it? Am I going to die here, alone in this wreckage? Then everything faded to black. The darkness wasn't what I expected. It wasn't cold, silent, or empty. Instead, it felt like an unsettling stillness, as though time had paused but I was still aware, suspended between existence and nothingness. Then, a sensation unlike anything I'd ever felt overtook me, a pulling, as if something invisible and immense was drawing me out of my body. Suddenly, I was floating above the crash site. I could see the crumpled remains of my Subaru, its front smashed against a tree. My body was still inside, slumped and motionless, bathed in the eerie red glow of its flickering hazard lights. Paramedics were working frantically to free me, their faces tense with concentration. One shouted instructions into a radio, while another wielded hydraulic cutters against the mangled car door. I felt detached from the scene below, as though I were observing someone else's life unravel. The pain was gone, replaced by a peculiar calm. Yet, at the same time, there was an undeniable pull, a force urging me upward. It wasn't violent or forceful. It was steady, insistent, and undeniable. The world below began to blur, dissolving into a swirling tunnel of light and shadow. At first, I resisted, clawing for some sense of control. What is happening? Where am I going? But there were no answers, only the inescapable momentum drawing me further into the unknown. As I moved through this tunnel, my senses heightened. Colors I'd never seen before danced around me, vivid and alive, accompanied by a low hum that resonated through my entire being. Despite its beauty, the sensation was overwhelming, both awe-inspiring and terrifying. I became aware of a profound truth. I was no longer tethered to my physical body. The realization hit me like a wave, both freeing and deeply unsettling. I wasn't ready to leave, yet it seemed the choice was no longer mine. And then, I began to feel it, a presence. Something was waiting for me, just beyond the light, and it was more powerful than anything I could comprehend. As I was pulled deeper into the tunnel, the sensation of weightlessness gave way to something heavier, a profound sense of exposure. It was as if every part of me was laid bare, stripped of pretense and facade. The colors around me shifted, swirling into patterns that seemed to reflect my emotions: fear, confusion, and an overwhelming sense of vulnerability. Then it began. Scenes from my life started to play out before me, not like a movie or a slideshow, but as if I was reliving each moment in its entirety. I could see and feel every detail with astonishing clarity. The warmth of my mother's embrace as a child, the excitement of my first job, the nights Gabriel and I spent laughing on the couch, and the arguments that left us silent and distant. But this wasn't just a recollection of events. Each moment carried weight, an emotional and spiritual significance I had never fully understood. I felt the joy I had brought to others, but I also felt the pain I had caused. Every harsh word, every selfish choice, every broken promise, they pressed against me like stones, heavy and unrelenting. I saw Gabriel, not as my partner, but as someone I had inadvertently hurt. What I had always justified as love appeared now as a complex entanglement of emotions, some of which were rooted in my own unresolved fears and insecurities. I felt the ripple effects of my actions, not just on him but on those around us. It was humbling, even crushing, to see myself from this unfiltered perspective. Amidst this life review, I felt a question rise within me, not spoken, but unmistakably clear. What have you done with the time you were given? The weight of it was immense, as though the question itself carried eternal consequences. My justifications, the stories I told myself to ease my conscience, evaporated in the light of this truth. At that moment, I realized I wasn't alone. A presence was with me, vast and incomprehensible, yet deeply personal. It wasn't accusatory or condemning. It simply was a profound awareness that knew every part of me. I felt both seen and loved, yet utterly unworthy in its gaze. As the life review concluded, I found myself spiraling toward a singular point of light, the presence growing stronger with each passing moment. I knew instinctively that I was approaching a moment of reckoning, a confrontation with the ultimate truth. My soul trembled with equal parts fear and hope, unsure of what awaited me beyond the light. The light ahead of me expanded, engulfing everything in its brilliance. It wasn't blinding. Instead, it radiated warmth and an indescribable sense of love. As I moved closer, the presence I had felt earlier became unmistakable, overwhelming me with its magnitude. I knew, without being told, who it was. Jesus, I whispered, not with my lips, but from the depths of my soul. It wasn't a recognition based on what I'd learned in Sunday school or seen in religious art. It was an undeniable knowing, as if the truth of his existence had always been a part of me, hidden beneath the surface until this moment. The figure before me wasn't the gentle shepherd I'd imagined as a child. This was the King of Kings, majestic and commanding, yet infinitely compassionate. There were no spoken words, but his presence communicated everything I needed to understand. Waves of love poured over me, so intense they brought tears to my eyes, or whatever semblance of eyes I had in this form. I wanted to fall to my knees, but I had no body to kneel with. Instead, my very essence seemed to bow before him, acknowledging his authority and holiness. Yet, despite this overwhelming love, I felt a deep conviction, a piercing awareness of the choices I had made, the truths I had ignored, and the ways I had strayed from the life I was meant to live. Images began to form around us, scenes of my life that were harder to confront than anything I'd seen in the life review. I saw the moments when I'd hurt Gabriel, not intentionally, but through my neglect of deeper truths. I saw the times I had encouraged others to follow paths I now realized led them away from the divine plan. His message wasn't delivered in words, but in an undeniable understanding that entered my consciousness. He loved me, deeply, unconditionally. But he also made it clear that love doesn't mean accepting everything as it is. There was a divine design, a purpose for humanity, and I had turned away from it in my search for identity and happiness. I felt a sense of grief, not from him, but within myself, as I realized how far I had drifted. And yet, even in this moment of reckoning, there was hope. The light surrounding Jesus wasn't just illuminating. It was healing, offering a chance to change, to align myself with the truth I had ignored. You have a choice, the presence seemed to convey. It wasn't spoken aloud, but I understood it with absolute clarity. I could continue as I was, carrying the weight of my decisions into eternity, or I could embrace the truth being revealed to me and return with a renewed purpose. The enormity of the decision hit me like a tidal wave. I felt torn between the comfort of the life I knew and the undeniable truth of what I now understood. The choice was mine, but the gravity of it was undeniable. This wasn't just about me. It was about something far greater. For the first time, I understood what it meant to truly surrender, not out of fear, but out of a profound desire to align with the source of all love and truth. And as I stood, or rather, existed, before Jesus, I realized that this was the turning point of my existence. The presence of Jesus was overwhelming, not in a way that inspired fear, but in a way that left no room for pretense. I could feel his love radiating, but alongside it came an unflinching clarity about my life, particularly about my relationships. My bond with Gabriel, which I had always defended as pure and genuine, was illuminated in a way I had never imagined. It wasn't condemnation I felt, but a sense of grief, as if I was being shown not only what was, but what could have been. Every moment Gabriel and I had shared, every laugh, every quiet night spent together, they were real, and yet they were also incomplete. I saw how our relationship, as beautiful as it often felt, had been rooted in a love that fell short of what I was now beginning to understand as divine truth. In the presence of Jesus, I saw love not just as a feeling or a bond between two people, but as something far deeper. a reflection of God's nature and His purpose for humanity. I was shown the spiritual impact of our choices, not just on ourselves but on those around us. Every decision, every action, rippled outward, touching lives in ways we could not see. One moment in particular stood out. A conversation I'd had with a younger coworker who had confided in me about his struggles with identity. I had encouraged him to embrace his truth, thinking I was helping him find peace. But now, I saw the unintended consequences. My words, spoken with good intentions, had steered him further from the very truth I was now confronting. It was a sobering realization. Jesus' message was clear, though it was never spoken aloud. Love, true love, was not about affirming every choice or action, but about guiding others toward truth, even when that truth was difficult or unpopular. It was a love that sought the best for others, not just in this life, but in eternity. I began to understand that my search for identity, my choices, and even my advocacy had been driven by a desire for belonging and acceptance. But in the process, I had overlooked the deeper purpose I was created for. The grief I felt wasn't shame. It was the pain of realizing how far I had strayed from the path I was meant to walk. Still, Jesus' presence offered hope. This wasn't the end. The revelation wasn't about punishment but about transformation, a chance to realign my life with the purpose I was created for. The choice before me became clearer: to continue living for myself, or to embrace a truth that would demand everything of me but offer so much more in return. As these realizations washed over me, the light around Jesus seemed to grow brighter, as if inviting me to step closer. I felt an urgency, a calling, to not only change but to use my experiences to help others see the truths I was now beginning to understand. It wasn't an easy choice, but it was one I couldn't ignore. As I stood in the presence of Jesus, the light around him shifted. Suddenly, I wasn't merely reflecting on the past. I was being shown glimpses of the future. It unfolded like a series of vivid dreams, each one more profound and unsettling than the last. The first vision was a continuation of the life I had been living, unaltered and unchanged. In this future, I saw myself with Gabriel, clinging to our relationship as we grew older. On the surface, things appeared content. Shared holidays, laughter at family gatherings, and quiet evenings in our home. But beneath the facade was an emptiness I couldn't ignore. The moments of joy were fleeting, overshadowed by a sense of spiritual stagnation. I saw how I drifted further from truth, seeking fulfillment in things that could never truly satisfy. And then came the end. My final moments on earth were marked not by peace, but by regret, a deep, gnawing realization that I had missed the opportunity to embrace something greater. The vision shifted, and I was shown another path. In this version of the future, I chose to return to life and fully embrace the truth I was now learning. The road wasn't easy. I saw myself struggling, explaining my transformation to Gabriel, and facing his heartbreak and disbelief. I saw the loss of friendships, the whispers behind my back, and the accusations of betrayal from people who had once been close to me. But alongside these hardships was something new, a sense of purpose, a deep and abiding peace that came from living in alignment with divine truth. I was shown moments of incredible clarity, times when I spoke to others about my experience, sharing my testimony with humility and love. I saw the faces of people whose lives were changed because I had the courage to speak out. There were tears of joy, embraces of hope, and the unmistakable light of transformation in their eyes. For the first time, I understood that my life wasn't just about me. My choices could impact others in ways I had never imagined. The weight of the decision pressed down on me like never before. I knew that choosing this path would mean letting go of so much: my comfort, my relationships, and even the identity I had built for myself. But I also knew it was the only choice that aligned with the truth I had encountered. The alternative was to turn away, to ignore what I had been shown, and to carry the burden of that rejection into eternity. As the visions faded, I felt the presence of Jesus again, his love unwavering. The choice was mine to make. It wasn't being forced upon me, but the gravity of it was undeniable. What will you do with the life you've been given? The question echoed through my being, and I realized that this wasn't just about returning to earth. It was about returning to a life of purpose, a life lived for something far greater than myself. When the visions faded, I found myself back in that indescribable presence. The overwhelming peace that had cradled me was still there, but now it carried a sense of urgency. I understood the choice before me, to return to earth and live out the truths I had been shown, or to remain and face the final judgment of my soul. My heart ached at the enormity of the decision. I'll go back, I thought, though it wasn't just a thought. It was a resolve that resonated through every fiber of my being. As soon as I made the decision, a warmth flooded over me, like a silent affirmation that this was the right choice. The light began to recede, and I felt myself being drawn back, as though I were descending through layers of existence. The pull was gentle, but the weight of returning to my earthly body felt like carrying a mountain on my shoulders. The first thing I became aware of was pain. It surged through me like a tidal wave, sharp, searing, and all-consuming. The sterile smell of antiseptic filled my nostrils as faint beeps and muffled voices drifted into my awareness. I opened my eyes to the blinding fluorescence of the hospital room, struggling to adjust to the harsh reality of my surroundings. "Raphael, can you hear me?" a nurse asked, her voice calm but insistent. I nodded weakly, unable to form words. My throat was dry, my chest felt as if it were caved in, and my head pounded with a dull, persistent ache. The next thing I saw was Gabriel, his face pale and streaked with tears. He was sitting at my bedside, clutching my hand with trembling fingers. "You're awake?" he whispered, his voice cracking with emotion. "I thought I lost you." I wanted to reassure him, to tell him I was okay, but the truth felt heavier than the pain in my body. "Gabriel," I rasped, barely able to speak. "We need to talk." He blinked, confusion and concern clouding his eyes. "Not now," he said softly, shaking his head. "You just woke up. You need to rest." But I knew rest wouldn't come. Not until I faced the truth of what I'd experienced. Over the following days, as my body began to heal, I tried to find the words to explain everything. How do you tell someone you love that the very foundation of your relationship has shifted? How do you share an experience so profound that it changes the way you see the world? The first time I tried to tell Gabriel, he dismissed it as a hallucination brought on by trauma. "It's the head injury," he said, his tone both gentle and dismissive. "You've been through so much. It's no wonder your mind is trying to make sense of it all." But it wasn't a hallucination. It was real, more real than anything I'd ever experienced. And the truth of it was something I couldn't ignore. My choice to return to life wasn't just about survival. It was about transformation. And as difficult as it was to face, I knew I had to begin that journey, no matter what it cost me. The days following my return were filled with a whirlwind of emotions. Relief that I had survived, guilt over what I now understood, and fear of what lay ahead. My body bore the scars of the accident: fractured ribs, a punctured lung, and a head injury that left me weak and in constant pain. But none of that compared to the weight of the spiritual revelation I carried within me. Gabriel stayed by my side, his unwavering presence both comforting and heartbreaking. He brought flowers to brighten the sterile hospital room and spent hours reading aloud, trying to distract me from the pain. But there was an unspoken tension between us, an invisible chasm that widened with each passing day. I knew I had to tell him everything, but I didn't know where to start. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the room filled with the soft glow of twilight, I finally found the courage. "Gabriel," I began, my voice trembling, "there's something I need to tell you. Something that happened while I was gone." He set down the book he was reading and leaned forward, his expression a mixture of concern and curiosity. "What is it?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I took a deep breath, recounting the accident, the tunnel, and the presence of Jesus. I described the life review, the piercing clarity of seeing my actions and their consequences, and the profound love I felt from the divine. As I spoke, tears streamed down my face, and my voice cracked under the weight of the memories. When I finished, Gabriel sat in stunned silence. "So, what does this mean?" he asked finally, his voice thick with emotion. "What are you saying, Raphael?" "It means I can't keep living the way I was," I said, the words spilling out like a dam breaking. "I've been shown a truth I can't ignore. Our relationship, as much as I love you, as much as I care about you, it's not in alignment with what I now understand." The pain in his eyes was like a dagger to my heart. "So, what?" he snapped, his tone sharp with anger. "You're just going to throw everything away? Us? What we've built together?" "It's not about throwing anything away," I replied, my voice trembling. "It's about stepping into a purpose that's bigger than myself, bigger than us. This isn't about rejecting you, Gabriel. It's about embracing what I've been called to do." For the first time, the full weight of what I was asking sank in. I wasn't just asking Gabriel to understand. I was asking him to let go. The realization hit me like a blow, but I knew there was no other way. The weeks that followed were some of the hardest of my life. Gabriel moved out, leaving behind an aching silence that seemed to fill every corner of the house. Friends who had once been my closest allies distanced themselves, unable to understand the transformation I was undergoing. On social media, the backlash was swift and unforgiving. I was called a traitor, a bigot, and worse. Yet amidst the pain and loss, there was also a sense of peace, a deep, unshakable certainty that I was on the right path. I began attending a small church where I found a community of believers who supported me in my journey. They didn't judge me for my past, but welcomed me with open arms, offering the encouragement and guidance I desperately needed. Each day was a step forward, a conscious choice to align my life with the truths I had been shown. It wasn't easy, and there were moments when I questioned everything. But I held on to the promise I had felt in the light, the assurance that this path, though difficult, was the one I was meant to walk. 2 years have passed since the accident that changed everything. My life looks nothing like it did before. Yet in so many ways, it feels fuller, richer, and more purposeful. The transformation wasn't easy. It was marked by pain, sacrifice, and loss. But it brought with it a profound sense of peace and clarity. After Gabriel moved out, I spent weeks grieving the life we had built. The house felt unbearably quiet without his laughter, and there were nights when the loneliness was so heavy I could hardly breathe. But slowly, I began to see this emptiness as an opportunity to rebuild, not just my physical life, but my spiritual one. I threw myself into prayer, reflection, and scripture, seeking the guidance I needed to navigate this new path. It wasn't long before my story began to spread. A close friend shared my testimony at their church, and from there, it found its way onto social media. Messages poured in, some filled with vitriol, accusing me of abandoning my identity and betraying the LGBTQ+ community, but others were different. They came from people who felt trapped in their own lives, questioning the choices they had made and searching for answers. Many of them thanked me for sharing my experience, saying it gave them hope or inspired them to seek their own truths. I felt a calling to do more. With the support of my church, I started a small group for people wrestling with their sexual identities and faith. This wasn't about conversion therapy or forcing anyone to change. It was about creating a space for honest conversations, for exploring what it means to align one's life with God's purpose. We met weekly in a modest community hall, sharing stories, praying together, and encouraging one another. One of the most moving moments came when a young man named Lucas approached me after a meeting. Tears streamed down his face as he said, "Your story saved my life. I was ready to give up, but hearing what you went through gave me the strength to keep going." That single conversation reaffirmed everything I had sacrificed. If my testimony could touch even one person, then it was worth it. But the mission hasn't been without its challenges. I've faced harsh criticism from all sides. Former friends have publicly denounced me, labeling me a traitor or accusing me of self-hatred. Social media attacks have been relentless, and there have even been moments when I feared for my safety. Yet through it all, I've held onto the light and love I experienced during my near-death encounter. The most important lesson I've learned is that true love isn't about affirmation. It's about leading others to truth, even when that truth is difficult to accept. It's about caring enough to confront the hard questions, to guide someone toward a purpose greater than themselves. That's the love I felt from Jesus during my experience, and it's the love I strive to embody every day. I don't know what the future holds, but I trust in the path laid out before me. My life now is dedicated to helping others find the same freedom and peace I've discovered. The road ahead is sure to have its challenges, but I face it with the knowledge that I'm not walking it alone. The presence that met me in the light is with me still, guiding me every step of the way. Leave your like, subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and watch this next story. It's incredibly moving.